After midnight, near 3,000 meters on the deadliest trail in China, a 19-year-old is feeding a fire with his own clothes. The wood around him is soaked. None of it will catch. So he burns what he's wearing, piece by piece, hunched over a flame the size of his hand, in air that's dropped past 20 below. He's been awake almost 2 days. Long enough that the cold has started to lie to him. More than once he's been certain someone was leading him down off the mountain, and come back to himself at the same fire, having walked in a circle in the dark. By morning, a rescuer will count dozens of his footprints in the snow around that fire. 2 days earlier, 5 strangers walked up this mountain together. By the time the storm let go of them, 3 were dead. Which 3, and why it was these 3 and not the others, is the part nobody saw coming. This is China's deadliest hiking trail. It's been illegal to cross since 2018, after it killed dozens of people. There are barriers at the trailhead now and staff whose only job is to turn hikers back. None of that stopped the 5. This past New Year, the first days of January 2026, they'd met online and agreed to cross it together. 4 men, 1 woman. They had never climbed as a team before. Only one of them had real experience. The guide, 28 years old. He'd finished the harder, full version of this same trail 4 days earlier, and he charged the other 400 or 500 yuan each to lead them across. In a group chat before they left, he wrote something close to, "My fate is mine, not heaven's." And the oldest was a woman of 32. The strongest was a man who trained people for a living, the only one in real shape. Then an older man, and the youngest, the 19-year-old. Remember them, because by the end, which of them lived is the cruelest joke this mountain ever told. The plan would have been reckless for veterans. 30 kilometers in 1 day, fast and light. No tents, nothing to survive a night in the open. 1 day of food each. The forecast said snow. They went anyway. Before dawn, they reached the trailhead and found it closed, so they followed another hiker around the checkpoint and slipped in through the trees. The moment they climbed high enough, every phone buzzed at once. A warning. Protected core area. Illegal crossing. Turn back now. To keep that warning from reporting them, and to dodge a fine of up to 5,000 yuan, the guide told everyone to switch to airplane mode. 5 phones went dark. None of them could have known what that one tap would cost. For a few hours, the trail just made them suffer. Snow to the knee, an hour of climbing for almost no ground. Then, in the afternoon, the mountain did the thing it's known for. Fog and snow came down together. The wind built until they could see only a few meters. The temperature fell toward 20 below, and the oldest began to fail. Her breathing went ragged. She couldn't hold the pace. The guide dropped back to stay with her, and the whole group slowed. By now, the 1 day crossing was finished. Not hard, finished. And that left 5 exhausted people one decision, in a whiteout, on the deadliest ridge in the country. They argued, "We can't know exactly what was set up there, but we know how they split, and that tells you most of it." The strongest wanted to push on. He still had something left. The oldest wanted to push on too. She wasn't going to come this far and turn home with nothing. The older man and the kid wanted out, and the guide went up with the ones who'd paid him. A guide who turns his clients around stops getting hired, so they split. 5 became 2 groups walking away from each other on the spine of the deadliest trail in the country. Neither group knew it, but the mountain had just made its choice. The 2 who turned back got through 1 night in the open, with no tent. By the next morning, the older man was still moving. The kid was not. He sat down. The older man knew exactly what that meant out there. Keep moving, and your body makes heat. Sit down in that cold, and the cold starts to win. He told the kid to get up. He begged him. The kid couldn't. So the older man did the ugliest useful thing left to him. He went down alone, because staying meant the mountain took them both, and before he went, he pressed the only lighter they had into the kid's hands. That lighter is the reason this story has a survivor at all. And we know it for certain, because it's in the official report. The boy who lived got his fire from a lighter, handed to him by the man who walked out ahead of him. Now think about what the kid was up against, alone, near 3,000 meters, in the dark. Hypothermia doesn't kill all at once. First you shiver. Then, as your core temperature drops, the shivering stops. And that feels like relief, but it's the opposite. Your body is giving up on keeping you warm. The blood pulls back from your hands and feet to defend your heart. Your thinking slows. And near the end, the part of the brain that regulates temperature can misfire so badly that you feel hot. People have been found dead in the snow having taken their clothes off. Once it has you, you have minutes, not hours. Between the kid, and that was a borrowed lighter, and whatever he could burn. The wood was soaked, it wouldn't light, so he went through his pack for anything dry, and the only dry thing he had was the clothes he wasn't wearing. He started burning them. The cloth caught, then dry grass. He had a fire. He ate what food he had, all of it, because he'd packed for one day. Then the sun went down, the cold dropped again, and the food was gone. And the cold began to lie to him. More than once he was sure he was walking off the mountain, that someone was leading him down, and came back to himself at the same fire, having gone nowhere. He kept the fire alive. He kept waking himself up. And somehow, he made it to morning. Down the mountain, the older man had made it out. Around 11 that morning, he reached a checkpoint and told the authorities there were still people up there. A family member called the police. And here is where that one tap on 5 phones came due. When rescuers tried to find them the fast way, through their phones, there was nothing. 5 signals had gone dark 2 days earlier and never come back. No location to walk toward, so they did it the hard way. Volunteers swept the mountain on foot, a grid across a ridge that kills people in good weather, in a blizzard, when snow past their knees. The day after the alarm went up, one team came over a rise and found the 19-year-old, alive, beside his fire. They got it on camera. A rescuer asks if he'll accept their help, and the first thing the half-frozen kid says isn't, "Thank you," and isn't, "Did anyone else make it?" He asks one question. "Is this going to cost me anything?" They tell him it's free, a volunteer team, no charge, and they carry him down. He had severe frostbite in both feet. He did not lose them. The story going around that he'd been amputated was a rumor, and the authorities said so plainly. The other 3 took longer to bring home. The strongest had gone over an edge, into a ravine close to 30 meters deep, sheer walled, nowhere to stand. The official report calls it a fall. The guide and the oldest were found together. We don't know who stopped first. The most grounded reading, and it is only that, is that he stayed with the woman who couldn't keep up, the way he had all day, until the 2 of them ran out of heat. It took days, and in the end, a helicopter to lift the man out of the ravine. Pull back, and you can see every place it went wrong. 5 people crossed a trail they knew was closed. They carried no tents onto a mountain in a storm. They switched off the one thing that could have led rescuers straight to them. And the man they had paid to keep them safe led the weakest of them up, not down. But here is the part no one saw coming. 2 of them came back, not the strongest, not the guide, the only one who had ever done this trail, not the one who refused to quit. The 2 who came back were the 2 who turned around, the older man who chose to walk away, and the kid he left behind with a lighter. The mountain didn't take the weakest. It took the ones who wouldn't stop. And the boy who lived spent that night burning the clothes off his own back, warming his hands at a fire that a man who had left him to save himself had pressed into them on the way